The kids can't read, write, or remember anything or use their imaginations, and the teachers are wondering why.
My child is in the second grade and can't read.
These kids can't read. They can't decode.
I teach seventh grade. They are still performing on the fourth grade level.
A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P. Do you guys remember the days where you were a kid in kindergarten or first grade and you sang that song? Do you remember the days of having your phonics book out on your desk? You had the little cool metal desk, and your teacher would ask you to fill in the blank with the correct vowel sounds, and you had to pronounce it out loud, whether it was a short vowel or a long vowel. A for apple, ah, ah. Do you guys remember that? If you grew up in America, you know exactly what I'm talking about, especially if you grew up before the 1990s. Guys, in the following videos, is going to surprise you what America has become over the last couple of decades, in which children, heck, even teenagers, for some reason forgot how to read.
I don't know if I should find this very sad or very hilarious, but this is actually crazy. Illinois has 24 schools where not a single child can read at a grade level. Illinois State Board of Education schools with 0 students scoring proficient on the IAR or the SAT in 2024. These are all the schools that are listed right here, and you see that number right here, students proficient in reading, 0. Like, bro, what the heck is going on, man? Kids cannot even read on the first grade level. Think about that for a second. Do you know how sad that is? Kids in Illinois cannot read at a first grade level. You notice how the school district name for most of them are in CPS, which means most of these schools are from Chicago. I'm not even surprised about that, to be honest. I mostly blame the parents, because you telling me we have 24 schools in Illinois where kids cannot even read at a grade level, not even a first grade level. And I blame the parents, because like, what are y'all parents doing? Like, y'all not teaching y'all kids how to read? To be honest, I'm kind of hoping that this is not true at all, because this don't even sound real. But hey, nowadays in this generation, bro, you got parents not even caring about what their kids do in school. So I wouldn't even be surprised. Let me know what y'all think about this.
In 2022, the Department of Education conducted a study, and they found that roughly a third of fourth and eighth graders are not able to read at a basic level. Children are also struggling with decoding from a phonics perspective and a reading perspective. So this starts to call into question, who is responsible for our children not being able to read in schools? And this answer is a complex one, because there's a lot of different moving pieces, right? You have the aspect from the family and the home life perspective, as well as the educational enterprise, when these districts and these institutions are outsourcing educational experts to come in and create curriculum that is then taught to students. You also have to look at this from a schooling perspective. Schooling, education, teaching, curriculum, and design, even though they all act under educational enterprises, meaning elementary schools, middle schools, high schools, community colleges, and universities, they are all not the same thing. And so when you hear me say education, I'm not just talking about schooling, right? Because a lot of times we only hear the word education intertwined with school. And yes, there are similarities. Yes, education has been used in exchange of schooling, but schooling and education are vastly different, just as teaching and curriculum are vastly different as well. And so this also calls into question, where is reading taking place, right? When you send your child to school, they should be able to know how to write their name, right? Know the alphabet, how to read at their age level, how to write at their age level. But reading is not being fostered at home, and now reading is not being fostered at school, right? Because we went from children having to do book reports and reading books end to end from chapter to chapter to now curriculum is being enforced onto teachers and children are reading passages and excerpts instead of books and literature. Now, let me just say this. I don't care if you are a middle schooler or you are a doctoral student. If you are a student, you need to always have a book in your book bag. Every student needs to have a book in their book bag. That is not exclusive to elementary. That is not exclusive to middle school, high school, first year freshman in university, or a doctoral student. You need to constantly be reading. And I also think the role of school and how a schoolhouse is placed in society, we have lost the plot, as some may say. What is the role of the school? To educate the learners. But now the schoolhouse, specifically speaking about teachers, are having to teach children how to write their name. That is the role of the parent. We are having teachers having to teach kids how to read from the beginning. That is the role of the parent. So in addition to the job that teachers are contracted and hired to do, we are not talking about this on a greater scheme of things. In a grander scheme of things, is the teacher has now become a secondary parental role in children's and students' lives. Do you know how many teachers buy food for their students because the child is not eating at home? This is not exclusive to elementary and is not exclusive to high school. Do you know how many teachers have to teach kids how to write legibly? Because that is not taught at home. Now we have these complexities because it has been deemed normal. And I want to push this a step further. It has been deemed normal in schools that are severely underfunded. This is not the norm for schools that receive millions upon millions of dollars in funding every year. And so you have the school also being secondary home. And I believe that's a video in its own because I have a lot to say on that conversation. But going back to the topic of reading and people not being able to read. The average reading level in the United States is about 7th to 8th grade. Your average adult cannot read and comprehend beyond an 8th grade level. That is why all of our marketing campaigns are in big, simple text. Okay? And I believe the percentage of adults that are illiterate in the United States is 56%. And so now we are having to extend this conversation to the oversimplification of literature. What happens when you have generations of kids that are only being taught how to read short excerpts? A short excerpt does not have an introduction, body paragraphs, and conclusion sentence. It does not have the complexities and imagination that novels have. And so this now creates an even more complex literacy issue. And I also think this is why people think the arts aren't important. This is why people think Creative writing is not important anymore. Art class is not important anymore. Because throughout their entire educational career, they have only been reading excerpts. They have not been exposed to literature in writing in a different format outside of short paragraphs. And this in turn creates the cultural war that we're seeing in the United States about reading, and this ongoing debate of the only subjects that are important is STEM. And so now we're seeing how everything is interconnected. And so now we see where the money is going when we are only pushing science, technology, engineering, and math. But when you are only given those things in short excerpts, how can you think on a real life problem solving scale? How can you think through conflict? Those conflict management skills are taught in the arts classes, through music, through these activities, whether it's sports, whether it's after school programs, which have been historically either underfunded or cut completely. So now you also have a generation of kids that have never been to an after school program. And now we can also see how this is connected to the loneliness epidemic. Where are they learning how to be social when everything in regards to their academic journey is online? The assignments are online. Just go on this website. And so now we also see how the innovation of technology is also creating or aiding to some of the social skill issues that we see within our students. And I also think this is why we see I learned that in high school. I learned that in high school as a pinnacle to critical pedagogy and people thinking that high school is on the same level of higher education institutions. And it simply is not. It is basic level learning, or it is supposed to be, right? So, yeah.
The kids can't read, write, or remember anything or use their imaginations, and the teachers are wondering why. Parents are confused with why our children are coming home with these crazy grades or not knowing how to do their homework, so then we can't help them because they don't know how to tell us what the hell they're doing in class. All across the country, we got teachers saying the same thing, that these kids are not in the level or on the level of the grade that they're in, that their handwriting is crazy, that they have zero retention and zero access to imagination. They will practice a subject or a skill the whole week, and then when it comes to testing, the children draw a blank. They don't know. They don't know what they're supposed to do. We were writing full-ass essays, the final draft and the rough draft in the same 45-minute time period, ready to turn in third grade. We got high schoolers out here right now that can't write 5 paragraphs. And the teachers and parents alike want to know why. But I'm going to tell you something. It ain't the kids. It's the system. It's not just COVID. It's not just the phones and the tablets. It's not just the parents. It's not just the curriculum. It's all of it.
My child is in the 2nd grade and can't read. She said she couldn't read her math problem in class, and so she had to ask a friend to read it for her, and now I'm seeing that the reading is obviously going to everything else, and her last school absolutely failed so many freaking children, which is why we switched this year, and she just got her testing for the beginning of the year, and it shows that she literally needs reading intervention 5 days a week. I didn't even learn to read until I was in 3rd grade because I had my own issues. How the fuck am I supposed to teach her how to read? The reading epidemic is real, and I think that it needs to be talked about more because now we are going to be spending $40 to $70 on tutoring for her. I co-parent with her dad and he bought her a phone, which I didn't agree to, but that's besides the point. And so she's 7 with a phone and she can't text or read the text, so you have to send voice memos. The reading epidemic is real. It's real. It is real, and schools are not helping for the most part because they don't have the resources.
These kids can't read. They can't decode. They have no vocabulary, no background knowledge. I've never seen anything like it. For context, for 8 years, I taught a self-contained program for significant language-based learning disabilities. Like, it was the most restrictive environment. It was the step before being sent to a specialized school. And my fifth graders with significant language-based learning disabilities could write better than non-disabled seventh graders can now. They can't write a sentence. They don't know what state they live in. They don't know what region of the country they're in. They have no background knowledge. Most of them don't know who the president is. They're coming to school with no background knowledge. They have very low skills. And yes, part of my job is to help them find those skills. And as a special education teacher, I'm obviously going to be working with students who require specialized instruction, but I'm not talking about specifically my students. I'm talking about students in the grade, period. And this was the case last year. They can't take notes. They can't even attend to a video. They can't even attend to a 3-minute video clip. I can play it. I can tell them what it's going to be about. I can summarize what the video did, and not a single one can tell me what the video was about.
No, y'all, can we talk about it? Can we please talk about it? Let's take a moment to discuss. Let's take a moment to debrief. Let's take a moment to unpack. So I'm not really understanding why they're not telling y'all. We all know that the world is behind, globally, because of the pandemic and stuff. But I don't understand why they're not stressing to y'all how bad it is. I'm not even trying to be funny, but these kids are... I'm going to just say this. I teach 7th grade. They are still performing on the 4th grade level. I don't care how you flip it, turn it, swing it, swindle it. They still performing on the 4th grade level. Ain't nobody talking about how they just keep moving, passing them on. They just keep passing them on, 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 passing them on. I can put as many zeros in this grade book as I want to. They're going to move that child to the 8th grade next year.
Not burned out until the second semester. Okay? Usually. That's when I approach burnout. Because we get Thanksgiving, we get Christmas, we get all these things. I am burned out. It's September. It has not been a full month yet. Has it been a full... No, it's close to a full month, but it has not been a full month yet. So let me tell you, you know what I'm talking about if you're teaching right now. I saw another teacher from another school across the street from our school walking to her car this afternoon, and she looked like she could barely walk to her car. And I was like, we're almost to Thanksgiving, trying to be friendly. And she was like, just unloaded on me. She's like, I've been teaching for 34 years. I have never had it this hard. What is wrong with these kids? Not in a bad way, but I don't know how to reach them. I feel like one lesson that used to take a day is taking a week now. The attention span, blah, blah.
And I teach at one of the more affluent schools. When I tell you that these babies cannot read, they cannot write, and they cannot comprehend, I'm not being funny. I'm being dead serious. It doesn't exist. I have kids constantly asking me, how do I spell window? How do I spell important? How do I spell though? And they be serious. They're dead serious. I could ask them, who is the main character of your story? The story of 4-paragraph story we just read. Can't tell you. They don't know. They don't know. They don't know. It took us 4 weeks to get through how to answer a question in a complete sentence.
And basically, whenever I say kids can't read, they are reading at either a kindergarten or a 1st grade level. When it comes to spelling, I'm seeing a lot of children who can't even spell the word said, for, mother, father in the 4th or 5th grade, which makes me wonder what's going to happen when they're in middle school and high school.
The fact that I have 4th graders who cannot read independently at all is just one, what am I supposed to do? Because teachers are not miracle workers. If I'm required to teach 4th grade standards, the 4th grade standards do not include me teaching phonics. Now, I understand RTI, the MTSS process, and different safety nets like that, but doing that for 30 minutes a day is not going to solve the problem. So what is really the expectation? Are we just going to continue to fail the students and not teach them how to read? What is...
I keep seeing all these videos of teachers being like, the kids can't read, the kids can't read, the kids can't read. I just saw a high school teacher get on here and say, his high schoolers are having a tough time doing reading comprehension. They don't understand the complexity of, what they're reading. And I, think back to, what I was reading in high school. And I'm it was The Grapes of Wrath, The Great Gatsby, short stories. Reading 1984 changed the way that I view, the government. But the sad thing is this guy went on to say, they can't understand like the books that they're reading, and they don't understand like the material that we're giving them. And the scary part is like these kids will just go into the workforce one day. And he went on to say that like these are the children that will get left behind. These are the people that will get left behind. It's a class divide between who can read and understand what they're reading, follow instructions, and who cannot. And I truly do think that like something more insidious will happen, is that company standards will just lower, because companies, people who are up there, know that dumb people are easy to take advantage of. And I think that things are just going to get worse for us as a country, because as people retire and these younger kids start going into the workforce who are quite frankly too dumb to understand anything, I think that like we'll just get taken advantage of even more, because these people will be duped into believing anything. And that does worry me, because I'm not that old yet. I'm so far away from retirement.
Punching down on somebody who tells you that their kid is struggling to read is weirdo behavior. I'm going to make a video for that mom who said her second grader is struggling, but I'm going to also make a video for some of y'all other people, because I'm in the schools and I know for a fact that it's more people struggling than her. All right, so number one, you're going to need to read every night. And I'm not exaggerating. Every single night, you need to be reading with your baby. You need to pick a book that she's going to read to you. You need to pick a book that you're going to read to her. To pick the book that she's going to read to you, you're going to use the 5-finger method. You're going to open up a random book, read a page, have her read a page to you. You're going to put a finger up for every single word that she gets wrong. If by the end of that page, she has 0 or 1 fingers up, that book is too easy for her to read. Put it to the side in the little stash that she gets to read in her free time. If by the end of that time, she has 2 or 3 fingers up, that is the perfect book for her. It's enough for her to struggle and for her to become fluent. That is the book that she needs to read out loud to you at night. If there are 4 to 5 fingers up, that book is too hard for her. Go ahead and make that the book that you're going to read. Now, number 2, the 5-finger method is cool, but children don't know how to read if it means that they only can decode words, meaning sound the words out, say the words on the page. To read means that you need to be able to do that, and you need to be able to understand what you are reading. So the second thing that you are going to do is start asking her W questions. Who, what, where, when, how. Where did they go? They went to the store. Who went to the store? What did they buy at the store? How did they get there? You're going to try to ask as many questions as you can, because that's how you build a child's comprehension. Now, when you're going from 2nd grade to 3rd grade next year, it is a significant jump. They say in schools, like in 2nd grade, you're learning how to read. In 3rd grade, you're reading to learn. So if you don't understand what you are reading, you cannot read to learn what you are supposed to do. So the comprehension is just as important as being able to say the words on the page. The last thing that you're going to do is less to do with the book, but more to help build their comprehension. You're going to try to create experiences for your child. It doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't have to cost a lot of money, but you do need to start building their schema, their understanding of the world, because that's what's going to make connections for them to understand what's happening. So that could look like we're reading a book about the grocery store, and then we're actually going to the grocery store, and we're talking about what's happening at the grocery store, and we're looking around and we're having conversations, because building experiences and building their schema is helping them to comprehend. Then they can become fluent readers. Then they can read to learn. It is not just your baby. Many students are struggling to read. Try these 3 things first. The school is going to do their part. They're going to do some intervention. They're going to do some other things for her. But if you do these things at home, these 3 things at home, you should also see some improvement, a faster improvement than just leaving it to the school to do. I wish you well. You are not the only one. Your baby is not the only one struggling. Do the things, do the work. Your baby will improve.
I'm going to just say this. I teach 7th grade. They are still performing on the 4th grade level.
7th grade English teacher here. I teach in Northern Houston, and I teach at one of the more affluent schools. When I tell you that these babies cannot read, they cannot write, and they cannot comprehend, I'm not being funny. I'm being dead serious. It doesn't exist. I have kids constantly asking me, how do I spell window? How do I spell important? How do I spell though? And they be serious. They're dead serious. I could ask them, who is the main character of your story? The story of 4-paragraph story we just read. Can't tell you. They don't know. They don't know. They don't know. It took us 4 weeks to get through how to answer a question in a complete sentence.
What's really appalling about these videos that we just saw, when you go to other countries, and I have obviously lived in other countries, for example, take my niece. My niece is pretty much European. She grew up in Europe, and when she was in the fifth grade, the equivalent to the fifth grade, roughly, I think about 10 years old or so, when she was that age, I took a look at one of her homework assignments. She was doing mathematics. And I looked at it and I said, this is pretty complicated. I knew how to solve the problem, obviously, but I reflect back to when I was in fifth grade and the type of work we were doing. It was still pretty difficult at the time, but when you look at what kids, for example, in Germany do in fourth and fifth grade for mathematics assignments, it's actually pretty interesting how far behind America is in the quality of education. What America does very well, what they do very, very well, is marketing their colleges, universities, and even their high schools as places to attend, um, which is why a lot of foreigners want to go to America to experience the quality of education there. Um, for example, just take a look at any major American movie. Let's look at American Pie, for example, where you have the crew who go through high school together. They eventually go on to college. But the American Pie crew, they have parties. They get into some wild stuff during their years in high school. So a lot of foreigners who look at those movies, they idolize American high schools because of the fun factor. This is something that is not done in other countries. I can say with a stone fist, it's not done. When you go to other schools in other countries, it's quite boring. But the quality of education is top notch. You're not going to find it better anywhere else, especially in Europe and Asia, right? But in America, everything is all about the flair. It's all about the glitz of it, the glam, until you see the reality. And what Hollywood doesn't show you is that in reality, many American schools don't look like that anymore. At one point, I can say that there were several that did look like the American Pie type schools or the Saved by the Bell type schools. But nowadays, a lot of them are rotting from the inside out. You have rat problems, especially in schools in Michigan that are suffering from rat issues. More to come on that in a future video. And then you have schools that have, rusting pipes and mold issues and all kinds of crazy stuff because there's no investment going into these schools. And there's no investment going into the infrastructure of the buildings and the plumbing. There's no infrastructure going, or investment rather, going into the education of our children as well, our babies. So our babies don't have the financial investment. Now, what about the time investment? You have some teachers who are very patient. They try their best to educate children. But what happens over time is that they start to grow frustrated because the children are not making huge strides in progress because they can't read. They're not able to piece together phonetics, or rather phonics. They're not able to understand and decode what is being read. They're just saying the words and they're not connecting the meaning of the word to what is being spoken. So, what ends up happening is you have a growing list of teachers across the country who are getting very frustrated with the school system's lack of ability to address the issue. And that is one reason why we're starting to see a shrinking teacher shortage. I covered that in a prior video on this channel. So make sure you check that one out. But just in general, when you have this, lack of attention being put into students, quite obviously, the responsibility falls onto the parent. Now, unfortunately, in America, parents don't have many parental rights with their children. Oftentimes, they have to go to work. They're not necessarily available to spend the time with the kid. So the kid ends up being somewhat neglected, and there is no real educational environment that's available at home for the kid to improve their phonics skills. So the kid goes to school and the kid gets frustrated. Now, it goes beyond just kids, quote unquote. This problem is happening among teenagers, and that is absolutely unacceptable. When you are 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 years old and you can't read anything, it's going to be a hard life for you. It's going to be a hard life. If you're trying to work a white collar job and you can't even pronounce the name of a country, or you're trying to get a nice blue collar job that has a lot of good benefits and you don't understand how to read the label, a warning label, for example, on a package, I think that's going to be very difficult, guys. And we must, if you're a teenager listening to this, you must listen to what I'm about to say. With AI and with the advancements we're seeing in technology right now, you can expect that reading will become an even more important skill in the next 15 years, 10 to 15, we'll say. Okay. Why? Well, because AI, first and foremost, in order to understand ChatGPT, you have to read it. You have to read it. They do have a voice mode, but it's better if you just read it because you get a bit more context from an answer when using the text mode versus the voice mode. So reading is fundamental, as they said back in the 80s. So that's number one. The number two, if you're unable to read, in the future, when you go for job interviews, how will you really understand what you're applying to? You won't even understand the job you're applying to. Yo, well, I'll just be an entrepreneur, that'll teach them. I don't have to work for someone else. Gen Alpha right now, and even part of Gen Z, but Gen Alpha, they're going to be having this mindset where they could just go into entrepreneurship and they don't necessarily need to go to work for anyone. Now, listen, as much as I love entrepreneurship, I have to be honest, we do need workers. We cannot have everyone be an entrepreneur. It won't work long term. Every economy must have a working class, working in terms of employee class. Every economy around the world must have that. If everyone's an entrepreneur, you're going to end up having more of an agrarian society because everyone's going to have to go into agriculture or trade specialties. No one will be able to do white collar work anymore because there will be no employees, and the founders would have to do the work or pass it off to AI to do it. And they may be revving up for that right now. That's probably why they're investing so heavily in AI because they saw this trend happening for quite a while and they're trying to find ways to counterbalance it. But at the end of the day, what's going to be needed in the future will be skilled workers, blue collar, white collar, and green collar, dealing with environmental studies and so on. That's going to be very, very important going forward in the future. So we need to have children who can read. We need to have children who understand phonics. We need to have children who can decode and then can associate words with meaning and can put these things together and have a very good comprehension of how to read and a reading level that is equal to or up to par with or even exceeds the current grades that they're in. And teenagers, what we need from them is the ability to prepare for university. If they don't want to go to university, fine. They can go into a vocational trade. They can start their own business if they have a great idea. No problem whatsoever. But if they can't read, it's going to be hard for them. And that's the reason why guys, these videos are totally unacceptable what's happening. with these kids, with these babies. And it's really funny, just to say this, put this out here. It's really funny how nobody is talking about this besides the teachers. Even the boards of education across the different states, they'll talk about it briefly, but they don't really take action on it. For me, this would be a code red if I were leading the board of education. Board of Ed in New York City, where I'm originally from, you know, I would have been on their ass if I found out that my kid could not read due to a fact that there was a lack of attention placed on the children in the classroom to encourage enforcement and leads to them being illiterate. They're basically illiterate. Guys, let's just call a spade a spade. They are illiterate kids. They don't understand anything. You know what this? You know what I liken it to? Back in slavery times, how a lot of Black Americans could not read. When they got out of slavery, they either self-taught themselves or they attended schools, institutions that were set up by Black freed slaves. And then they learned how to read this way because those Blacks, they either learned from whites or they taught themselves how to read by just being around whites and hearing how things are pronounced. And then they basically were able to grasp a very firm and literate level. Okay, they were quite fluent in reading, and then they were able to teach other Black slaves how to read as well. And so I liken this period to basically how the slaves were prior to learning how to read. And it's a disgrace because at that time they had the least amount of mental power and economic power. And to be quite honest, reading can lead to more economic power because it's a known fact and studies show out there that highly literate people who, especially those who read books and news articles and keep in tune with the world around them, typically earn more money and are more successful in their jobs or careers or business than people who are illiterate or people who have low reading levels. Usually, stereotypically, people with low reading levels, they go into sports or entertainment, and they may have a good career in that, but then what good is it when you're being screwed out of your contract and because you can't read the basic jargon? What good is it if you can't go to a store and simply read off a card? Now, I'm sure most of these teenagers know how to order something from a menu. Okay, I'm sure about that. I'm sure that they're not totally illiterate. But when it comes to a 4-sentence paragraph and the teacher is asking you who is the main character of this passage and what was their intent, and you cannot simply define that, that is a critical problem. And guess what? Guess what, guys? When we were younger, growing up in the 80s and 90s, early 90s, we had to write essays in grade school. We had to write essays. We had to have the draft essay. Then we had to have a final draft that was submitted to the teacher. The teacher will mark it up. You had to go back and make revisions to the draft and resubmit it again, almost like you would see commonly in the publishing industry. It seems like they totally got rid of that along the way. And I'm not really sure what America's doing. But again, you go to other countries, you got kids in those countries reading past their levels. They're reading past it. Even in Europe, they're reading past their levels. And it doesn't make any sense. I mean, in Asia, we all know Japan, Japanese kids are getting the best education possible. And our American kids, it is just, and again, it's irregardless of race, irregardless of background, American kids in general are freaking screwed when it comes to reading. So with this one, I would say that there needs to be pushback from the parents. There needs to be pushback from the teachers. They need to call PTAs or parent-teacher conferences to resolve the issue. Bring it to the attention of the Board of Education. Bring it to the attention of the faculty, the dean, or the principal at the school that these kids attend. Boycott if you need to. Say, hey, government, if you don't want to educate our kids, fine, we'll homeschool all of our kids. We'll find a way to homeschool our kids, and we won't let them attend your college or your institution anymore. And I'm sure there will be some pushback. And then they're going to need to go out and search for qualified teachers who can teach these kids how to read. Bring back the old teachers. If they're still alive, bring them back. Bring them back and have them teach our kids. They were the best. I loved my teachers. They were so influential to me in my career, and my way of thinking, my mentality. They were so influential, and they were patient. They took their time with us, and we learned quite a bit from them. And whether they're still on earth, roaming around to this day, or if they've already passed on, my much respect to them. I love them, and everything turned out all right with me. And I'm sure that they would be happy to see it. Guys, make sure you like this video, subscribe, support our children, support their reading, get out there, protest, make your voice heard. This is a critical issue in America today. If you like this video, subscribe to the channel, please. Show me some love. This video right here will be a whole nother topic. Make sure you give that a click. I'll see you on the next one.